steal the scene. I'm gonna let you speak. I would like to introduce Ellora, Eve and Marlien. Thank you very much for coming, and let's start from a little introduction about yourself and what you do. Who wants to start? Yes.
Hi everyone, I'm Eve. I'm the founder of Bundlee, and Bundlee is a baby clothing rental service. So it's a much more sustainable way for parents to access the clothes they need for their little ones. So basically they rent a set of clothes, and then as their little one grows, they just swap the clothes for the next size up.
Thanks. I'm Marlien. I am an executive coach and I focus on young professionals, mainly young women at the start of their career, who are high achieving, want to get everything out of life, but at the same time also feel stress, pressure, are kind of never satisfied with the work that they do and kind of feel exhausted. And I help them to deliver work with a lot of confidence without burning themselves out. That's what I'm trying to do.
I needed you in my life. I'm Ellora. I have two branches to my tree. I'm an actor, so self-employed, and I run a business, founder of the Arty Vegan. And the Arty Vegan is a sustainable vegan food solutions company. We created, or we set out to have an endeavor to have the one bean, the soybean, create many, many foods. So we specialized in vegan cheese, a quality product at cheaper prices. And at the heart of the business was tofu and learning how to make zero waste tofu. So using every single part of the bean and promoting that to larger audiences, whether that's in sort of big stores, at home, small businesses, and everywhere else.
Perfect, thank you very much. We've got a very different kind of background, very different kind of things about your work for yourself, basically. So what were you doing before you started this entrepreneurship journey or freelancer journey?
So I've been running sort of two jobs at the same time for the entirety of this business. It's not something I ever thought I'd ever get into. If I'm totally honest, as an actor, I'm no good with numbers. Maybe I'm a bit better now. I don't think in that way, or whatever way I thought was needed to do that. Never occurred to me. It was my father who was sort of sick of working for other people. He always worked in food, and he wanted to set up a business, but had all the skills in the kitchen and no skills to do all the other stuff that's required. So I had a month of work in between roles, and I said, okay, cool, I'll set something up for you on Instagram, we'll start there and see how it goes. And within about 2 weeks, it kind of exploded, and it became my full-time job, or full-time hobby alongside a full-time job.
And so I kind of was fresh out of uni when I started Bundlee. I'd always worked at startups whilst at uni, and had internships or just part-time jobs along the side. And yeah, I had always wanted to start a business, but was just waiting for the right idea, and an idea that I could see myself actually committing to for a long time, because it does take a while to get a business going and growing. So yeah, I had a job at a startup, part-time whilst doing my masters. They offered me a full-time job. I took it for 3 months, and 3 months in I was like, why am I working on someone else's idea when I could just be working on Bundlee? And then literally the next day I was like, I quit.
So cool. I started out as a consultant after I graduated, and then I became a trainer in soft skills and personal development. And when I moved to London, I added coaching to that, the one-on-one coaching. And doing that for myself was also never an idea. I thought I'm not material for freelancing, and I'm not suitable for that. But that was imposter feelings talking. I am suitable for that, and I tried to, I decided to set up my own coaching practice.
I guess I will start from Eve. So how did you come up with the idea of starting Bundlee? How did it come up?
So yeah, as I said, I always wanted to start a business, so I was always kind of thinking of different ideas, and I don't know if anyone here has kind of the notes app on their phone, just full of different ideas, or a little notepad where you write them all in. But yeah, I had so many, but none of them were the one where I was like, this is it and this is what I want to put my full energy into. And then I'd spent a year studying abroad in America, and over there they have this service called Rent the Runway, where you can rent like designer women's wear, and myself and all my friends would all rent dresses for nights out, and it just meant you could get like these amazing dresses for like £10 and it was like great. And then when I came back to the UK, I thought, oh, I'm just going to start renting my clothes now, and there weren't any like women's wear rental services then, but I still was like really inspired by rental, just because I thought it's so much more sustainable, you can get great quality clothes, you're saving money as well. And I started to think of like where else you could apply that concept, and I've got much younger siblings, so there's like an 18-year age gap between me and the youngest. So when I was a teenager, basically our house was suddenly like overrun with all this baby stuff. It was like taking over my life. So I kind of thought, actually, that's the time when you need stuff for such a limited period of time. Babies actually outgrow 7 clothing sizes in their first 2 years. So for me, I was like, wait, rental, baby clothes, like it just fits so naturally together. So yeah, that's how the idea came.
And when you started, how did you go about understanding what were the steps to take to develop your idea further, and how did you go about learning new skills?
So I actually went back to uni. So at my uni there was this master's course called like the Master in Enterprise, and you can basically spend a whole year like researching a business idea you have, whether you want to turn it into reality or not. So I thought that was a really good opportunity for me to actually like firstly have the time to like research it, and because it was such a new concept, there wasn't any rental in the UK, I really wanted to speak to tons and tons of parents and see like if this is something they'd even be interested in. So it kind of gave me the space to do that, and I think one of the most important things about that course was that it put me in a cohort of people who were all interested in starting a business and all didn't think that was crazy. And I think there's something like really like special about having people around you who also agree like this isn't actually wild, like you can go and do this. And that's what I'd kind of had in America. Like over there I was at a school for basically like really rich kids, and their parents could all basically give them money to start up a company. So over there they just like had an idea and be like, oh yeah, I'm starting this like startup, like blah, blah, blah. And it was just so normal over there, and that's what in one way helped me think, oh, I can do this. And then yeah, secondly, being in that master's course with that whole group of people all working on something really helped as well.
Ellora, what about you? You said that your dad gave you the idea, but then you said, okay, let's open an Instagram page, let's start some digital marketing site. How did it go about learning new skills or putting yourself into a new space?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting because I think that a lot of the skills that I think I've learnt, somehow retrospectively looking back, there were the seeds that were already there all along. So a bit about me, I've been vegan all my life because both my parents were vegan before it was cool. And so I grew up with fresh tofu being made at home, a zero waste sort of ethic, sort of sustainable way of life anyway. And I didn't grow up in this country until the age of about 13. So we were always in Asia and in Africa and in other places. And over there's a very different lifestyle and a different approach to food and business. I mean, if you want to, my father did many times, you just start something up in your garage, start selling out the window, it's fine. Nobody comes to check your food safety or your anything. So I kind of lived with that all the time, but was sort of in my own world, had my own ambitions and dreams, and I went to drama school and trained and then went on to do all of that. So it was so not in my thought. It was just a conversation with my dad, who is my friend, who was saying, I'd really like to give this a go. And so I was like, well, I can fill out a form, you might find that hard, I'll do it. And then it was like, I can set up an Instagram, you don't know how to, I'll do it. And then it was like, I'll do the deliveries because you're making the tofu, I'll do it. And then it just sort of escalated from that. And then when we got to a certain point a couple of years later where we were doing kind of more intense meetings where it was about growing a brand, and it was about going into those meetings and having conversations that honestly most of the time I'd record, don't tell anyone, I'd record the meetings sometimes because it was gibberish, it was like another language. They were talking about profit margins, they were talking about, I mean, maybe it's obvious to you guys, but I was sitting there just going, don't know what that is. never seen a spreadsheet, never made a spreadsheet. Oh my God, are we in loss? Are we in profit? And I was just sitting at those tables desperately trying to be okay and trying to look professional, because otherwise we'd have thrown everything we built. So, and then I'd go home and then I'd spend the entire evening just Googling and YouTubing and listening to other people and talking to lots of people I met and just trying to absorb as much as I could, which would take me into the next day, and then starting to build a spreadsheet for the first time and fulfilling the things. I mean, I remember somebody said once, started talking about a contract. I'd never seen a contract, really. And, you know, I had to get a lawyer to write a contract. And all of these things were just because the opportunities presented themselves to me. And I had to fulfill them in order to go on to the next step. So I suppose my method in business has been a little bit ad hoc in the sense that there was no plan. The thing appeared and I just had to do it or decide it was over. And I never wanted to decide it was over because it was so close to my heart, and I do believe in the idea. So I just kept learning because something presented something else.
Yeah, go for it. And just to add to that, even if you go and do like a whole course around business, you learn so much more when you're actually doing it. If you're writing essays about businesses or looking at case studies about businesses, it is great. But like my master's gave me the time to work on Bundlee, but the actual doing it is where I actually learn everything, really.
Yeah, I'd like to ask to Marlien, like, what is your experience with, you know, young professionals? Like, is this the way they undertake such a challenge, like learning new skill sets, or did you experience something different in your career with some other professionals?
Yeah, how they deal with going for it, you mean, and learning new skills.
Because she said, I'm going for it, you know.
Yeah, anyway, we had a little chat about this before. Without, you're not going to feel confident one day. You're not going to wake up feeling the confidence, the sun is shining, and there you go. So I think the trick is to do it and kind of tolerate the insecurity that comes with it. Tolerate that you think, shit, I don't know, and Google it and just go for it. And also organize maybe a bit of help if that happens. How do I have a fallback to chat with someone about that? But go for it and accept and tolerate that it's gonna be scary and you're gonna feel insecure.
And it's not going to be perfect.
It's not going to be perfect. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's absolutely not going to be perfect. And if you wait till that perfect opportunity, business or idea that you really feel confident about, you can wait until you're 65 and gonna retire, because it does, yeah, that's not life.
Also, just on that point, I also think it's also about like, sometimes making mistakes, I feel like is the most useful thing. Because, I mean, if you ask me today to start a brand new business, I would never do it in the same way that we started this one. Like, not in a million years. Oh my God, I think out of everything, I think I must have got 80% wrong. But through getting 80% wrong, you sort of learn how to do it better. So every day you've learned something new to propel you forward. So the mistakes are actually kind of gold dust, I think.
So on that note, what was the biggest mistake or the most difficult thing about starting your own company? Who's gonna take this? The most difficult part.
The most difficult part. Well, I'll answer this in two ways. I think the most difficult part is always the actually moving from an idea to starting to execute that idea. And I think a lot of people get stuck on the idea stage, and it's quite a nice, comfortable stage to be at, because you're saying, oh, this will be so amazing in the future, like, I could do this so great, da, 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 da. Like, this is like the business that's going to change the world. But until you actually put some action behind that, it's just living in your mind. And I think that is a scary thing, and I think that's where the perfectionism comes in as well, because in your head, you can make that idea perfect, like, it's like the dream company. But part of that is you being scared that if you did it in reality, it's not going to live up to that expectation. So then you kind of like don't take the leap, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think taking that first step and actually committing and saying, I'm actually going to make this a thing, is challenging. But once you do take that first step, then you kind of just roll with it, and there's this momentum behind it, and you don't need to know what the next step is. That just comes to you, and then you figure out the next step after that, and then it kind of all starts rolling.
So what was the first step for you?
The first step for me, so mine was a bit weird because I had like the master's bit where I actually went out and taught to parents, but I'd say the first actual official step of starting a business was when I like made like the website, and actually the first step was kind of when I quit my job, because I quit my job before I even made the website. I kind of just knew, you know, when you suddenly get the courage, and I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And it was the day after the Christmas party, the Saturday morning, and I was really hungover, and I called my bosses in, and I was like, can we meet in the office? They were probably like, I hate you. And then I was just like, I just needed to say it now, and I was just like, I'm leaving, I can't do this. So yeah, and a lot of tears were shed. I hate quitting jobs, it's really emotional for me for some reason. But yeah, and so that was kind of the first step. But then putting the website live as well, and just putting something out there, starting an Instagram account, even that feels quite nerve-wracking when you go to do it, because it's like, oh god, like who's going to see this, who's watching, but you just have to do it. And then I'd say one of the challenges is, in hindsight, I'm running a really complicated business, because it's like logistics, like, okay, so imagine a typical e-commerce business, you're just sending the product out. Yeah, some people might return it, but most people are going to keep it. With mine, everyone's returning the product to swap for the next size. So I'm running like a whole reverse logistics operation. Then we've got the stock side of things. We have our own brands, we get that designed and manufactured, and we work with other brands as well. So it's kind of challenging. In some ways it's good, because it kind of gives us like kind of a moat around our business. Like, it's really hard for competitors to start up, because it is a tough business, but in other ways I'm like, ooh, it would have been quite nice to do a simple business, but here we go, we pick our battles.
Well done. And have you ever felt that in the process you wanted to quit, or you were not capable of bringing this forward?
Well, one of the most challenging parts is waiting, well, I say waiting, anticipating that first sale. So I put that website out. I think from doing my like research, I think I had 100 parents' emails from that. So I was like, I'm going to send it to these 100 parents, probably like 50 of them will sign up. Sent it out, no one signed up. And it took like a good couple of months just to get that first sign up to it, because it was such a new concept. There weren't even women's wear rental services. My website, in hindsight, was awful. Like, everything you look back on, and like, it's so ugly. You're like, how did I ever put that live and think people were going to join? So yeah, that kind of phase of having had all that courage to do it, and then suddenly you get no reaction, that's quite demoralising. But at the same time, like, when you do get that first sale, and I remember it was on a Saturday morning, everything big happens on a Saturday morning, but it was on a Saturday morning, and like, I opened up my emails and I saw there was a Shopify notification, and I was literally like, thank you. I remember her name as well, Naomi, thank you, Naomi.
What about you?
Sorry, so the first question was the difficulties, was it?
Yeah, the difficulties, and if you ever felt like you wanted to quit because it was too difficult.
So I think in my case, I think it was the difficulties we found most of the time was the fact that there was multiple things, but I think that it was, as a food business, starting food, it's religiously difficult. It's difficult because you're providing something that people are consuming, there's safety, there's all of the red tape that, you know, to even, I mean, when you start to really move forward into sort of like production and manufacturing and on larger scale, you're talking about getting certain accreditation so that you can even sell to places, otherwise they're out of bounds, they're out of reach. So doing those things are always hard. But fundamentally, it's also about money. If you don't have money to get into those places, if you don't have money to spend writing your SALSA accreditation or your BRC accreditation, that means that you have to do it yourself, and you don't have those skills. So that's not only terrifying, it's also quite demoralizing, because the business, everything we earned, we invested back. We had no angel investor, there was no blind investor, there was nothing. It was just what we were creating was feeding back into the business. And that provides challenges, but it also provides like a bleak realization. I'm going to get this wrong, but I think there was a statistic that read in food, something like 80% of food brands you see on a shelf in a shop has some kind of investment behind it. it's so rare to have a food brand that remains on the shelves that has no investment. So where we did end up in Whole Foods, Planet Organic, we were on to do Ocado, Selfridges, all the rest. Where we ended up is quite remarkable that was possible. So there was light at the end of the tunnel, but doing that with absolutely nothing just means you have to work your arse off. And I think, I mean, in terms of quitting, having another job that I was doing, I mean, me and my dad were making everything by hand, so it's an artisan product. And imagine making, you know, thinking, okay, I've got to film this, and this happens on a Monday, but I have to make 2,000 cheeses before I go because the shelf life allows me to go and film and come back for 2 days, make 2,000 more cheeses, and then go back. And, you know, there was one time I finished a film and I came back and I was staring into my pot and I was just crying, and I didn't know why I was crying. I was just like, yeah, I don't know, this is going to be salty cheese. You know, like it's just the sort of physical stress levels as well of working at that intensity for such a long time is very difficult. I think also fundamentally is the structures, when you realise as well that there's a lot of power play, which comes back to, I guess, the imposter syndrome thing. The challenges you face just because it's you who is talking. Whether that's because you're, however you identify, I identify as a woman, I am brown, I am young, and all of those things, you know, you're up against challenges. And sometimes you do, you walk out of a room that is solely male, and you've just been having, you know, older males who've been in the business for much longer, who think you're a complete amateur, naive, stupid, what are you doing here? And you have to do that for 4 hours, and then you have to go back the next day, and you have to keep smiling and keep going, it's fine, it's absolutely okay. And you do go home and just go, what the hell is this world? Like, this is rough. So, yeah, a multitude of things for me, definitely.
Marlien, what can you tell us about this? Please shed some light.
What exactly do you want to hear?
How to deal with moments where you doubt yourself, you want to quit, but you feel also like you can't quit because you now started.
Yeah. I think this very often indeed one of the hardest things. I don't have such complex business as you have, but the hard thing for me is doing stuff alone. Organizing help is one of the things that I try to do to not go down that road of self-doubt. And what I try to do as well is, first of all, I think notice is that it's happening, that you kind of hear yourself think that, and that feeling that comes with it, that nagging feeling, or indeed an emotional moment, or things where you feel that you are in that imposter moment, actually. And I think it helps to notice and to acknowledge it and not push it away, because I don't know about you, if I try to push feelings away, they pop up every time again, because they kind of are a signal of something and want to be heard. So I try to kind of give it a bit of space, but I also try not to go down the road 100%, because that ends up with me applying for a job tomorrow, because I want safety and I have stress, you know. So if you want to prevent that, then, and actually that's something I'm going to do tomorrow as well, because I need to do it again, is to celebrate stuff. Because our brain is also wired to focus on, this is not going well, this is what I need to improve, I should have done it better months ago. And if we're going down that road, then it's a shit spiral going down. So notice it and deliberately, even though you don't feel like celebrating a champagne, write down everything that went well. Write down everything that you learned so far. Write down that you have the courage to try this in the freaking first place. How amazing is that? And to feed yourself with other thoughts than only, oh, this is scary.
I guess something that I've noticed from, so I have like a kind of like recent graduate who works for me, and she kind of, when she's emailing people, she's like, oh, I don't want to annoy them. And she's really scared of annoying people. And I'm trying to get her out of that flow, because I'm like, they're selling clothes to us, like they want to hear from you. So yeah, that's what I've noticed more, and maybe that comes from imposter syndrome, I don't know, but yeah, just trying to make people feel like, no, people want you to message them and they want to hear from you, and you have a right to be emailing these people.
I don't have a team. I mean, the team consists of me and my dad. My dad's sort of large main role is basically in the kitchen. But actually, you know, even though he's not a woman necessarily, he is an Italian man who grew up in Geneva and suffered probably a lot of racism even there as a child. And it speaks English, I think, very well, considering that he just learnt it, but has a very strong accent. And I do think that there is an element for him that sometimes he does feel sort of misplaced because he didn't do higher education, or he doesn't have the qualifications to show for, you know, these are my golden stars, this is why you should listen to me. Even though a lot of what he has to say I think is very useful. So sometimes, yeah, it's been really interesting, and also that dynamic of him also being my dad, who's a much older person. Those things make sort of meetings, sometimes I bring him along, because you know, he's got a sort of rustic pirate look about him, and I was like, yeah, you're going to sell the cheese really well, we need you there. And he'd be like, but I've got nothing to say, I can't do this. And you'd just be like, no, but it's great, but you've been making tofu longer than I have. I mean, come on, like, you've got everything to say. And sort of dealing with those emotions and your own emotions, but still having to sort of ride that ship because you're the one sailing the boat, so you've got to. That's been also interesting.
It's nice that you guys encourage each other, so you push each other. Maybe because you didn't want to sell, so you were like, go Dad, sell the cheese. So, what changes did you have to make in your life in order to, you know, accommodate the business life?
Yeah, I can share a little bit. In terms of working hours, not so much, and I try to prevent myself from burning out, what I teach other people to do, because I think in the business it's also not about working hard, but working smart to reach the things, of course, you want to do. So I try to educate myself in that and learn from other business people how they do that to prevent that. Money-wise is of course a thing. I take a risk with building up a business, and I have less money for holidays, so that's a thing that's a risk I take now in order to get to the bigger picture of where I want to be. So that's something I have to tolerate now and do that. But apart from that, not very much sacrifices. Don't know about you.
Trying to think. I feel like I try and block these things out of my memory, like from like the early days. Yeah, I'm like, oh. But actually, yeah, at the beginning, for like the first 2 years, I think, I didn't like pay myself from the business, just because I didn't have any money to pay me as well, and had like part-time jobs alongside it. So I was basically trying to find jobs where I wouldn't have to like think about them too much outside of the actual hours, and I could just go do the hours and then use my actual brain capacity for working on Bundlee. What other sacrifices? Just like weekends, like I normally work. I'm not working the whole weekend because that doesn't set me up for a good next week, which I've learned. And there were definitely phases where I would work the whole weekend, but now I'm trying to have a bit more of just like fun time. I think especially after like COVID and stuff, now that the world's opened up, I'm like, actually, like me going off and having fun on the weekend means that I come back so much more focused during the weekdays. But obviously it's one of those things that it's a bit of a pipe dream because something comes up and then you end up like waking up on Saturday morning and having to open up your emails.
Gosh. I wish I could make this sound more positive, but sadly it's not in my case. I think I sacrificed a lot. I think, so being an actor, you know, as a job, I've been fortunate that I've worked steadily, but it depends on the kind of jobs you take. You know, some jobs pay really well, you just need one job, you're fit for the year, that's your kind of like, it's your one job. Other times you do a multitude of jobs, and because that's also been my career's big passion, I wanted to maneuver it so that I was also exploring a range of creative options, and some of those creative options don't pay as well. So the knowledge that in your free time, whatever that might be, you don't do another job, that will give you some money, and you, kind of what you're saying, the money thing, you know, it's it's a little risk to take, but it's highly satisfying at the same time because you are doing something that's constantly stimulating you, which keeps you on your toes for when that next job comes through. But fundamentally, sleep. I think I sacrificed sleep, and I think I sacrificed also. I'm in a relationship a lot with my partner because I think it's been, you know, especially if you're with somebody who also equally loves their job, you know, who will also work overtime for their job, and I don't stop. It's been hard, you know. Sometimes you just have to find a moment. Doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m. You know, I'd just be like, nope, we need to have a sit down, heart to heart. Tell me about your life. I need to know who you are again. You know, like that kind of thing, because you're just like, I've lost all connection and feeling to friendships. You know, that going out for coffee, going out for lunch, when you are producing, selling, running a media page, going to meetings, and then doing another job on the side. I mean, your entire life, well, my entire life was work. And still is to a certain extent, but definitely finding a bit more balance in that regard. But I would say that it does depend on the person. You would know more probably to talk about like burnout and sort of how to deal with that. But I definitely found something that I would say I'm pretty proud of is that I definitely reached moments of burnout and I thought, God, this is it. That's it. I just can't get out of bed today. But I could. And is that healthy? Maybe not. But I managed it, and that just, you know, the threshold and how the threshold seems to grow. Now I've got like, you know, 1 page of writing to do or something, and I'm going, God, is that all I have to do today? Whereas that would have seemed like a really big task 2 years ago. So sort of the mixed bag of what you sacrifice for what you love, though. You know, and I think that is also a big part of it. It's like you do this kind of thing, you start your business, it's your baby, if you want to give it a sort of metaphor. It's because you love it and you believe in it so strongly that you don't stop because you know it works, because you have the stats. You know, you don't just go blindly when it's failing. But if it works and you've seen it, you just go, there's a voice worth hearing here, so you just keep going.
Thank you, that was very motivating. Thank you very much. So, very positive at the end, yeah. Have you ever dealt with rejection and failure from colleagues, friends, suppliers, anyone really?
So when I first started Bundlee, the kind of idea behind it was that I was going to work with brands, and the brand's clothes would be available on our site for rental. So that's just the way I thought it would naturally work. So I reached out to brands, basically just emailing them like, hi, I'm starting this like clothing rental site, like love your clothes, I would love to like have them on it. Just like a really simple email, and everyone was like, who are you? Like, what is this? No. And obviously I was just very naive, didn't really understand how like brand relationships work. They obviously want to know that you're legitimate and credible and are going to be able to get customers because they're like holding some of their stock for you, and like you have to have a lot more proof behind it than what I was giving them. At the time I was like, what am I going to do then? Like, if I don't have clothes, what am I going to be renting out? And it kind of, yeah, took the business like down a different route, where I ended up finding our own factory and we ended up designing our own range and creating that. But in doing that, we were then able to actually get the proof that the brands needed. So we were able to get customers, like show that people wanted this like a new way of consuming clothes. And then we went back to those brands. And now, like, this is like, I think it was maybe like a year and a half later that we went back to the brands, but now I've got like literally my dream brands are working with us. So we have like Patagonia, don't know how familiar you guys are with like baby and children's wear brands, but like Maury, Mini Rodine is a really cool one, but yeah. And we're about to launch Stella McCartney Kids next week as well.
Amazing. I want to know, like,
Yeah.
when the brands were telling you no,
Yeah.
how did you feel?
Again, I probably blocked it out, but I think it was gutting, I think. No, I think, yeah, it was more just like, like, I think because in my head rental was like, this is the future. I thought I'd go to them and they'd be like, yeah, it is. And they were just like, what are you talking about? Yeah, it was so funny as well. Like the second time I went to some of the brands, like I didn't mention that I'd emailed them before about this, so they probably like never even like remembered it, or maybe they didn't. Maybe they were always keeping an eye and seeing like what we were doing. But yeah, like sometimes like timing is everything, and it just means that you go and like create more like proof points for your business. Like you can't really expect to go to someone with literally nothing and say like, oh yeah, believe in it and come on board. Like you need something to show for it. So in hindsight, it's probably a good thing that they said no then, because if we'd have got their stock then, we wouldn't have had any customers to rent it to. It would have been a terrible experience for them. We would have burned those relationships, and then we wouldn't be where we are now.
It's a rejection word.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the longest things I tried to do was get into one of the bigger shops we supplied, and I think it took me over a year. And it was just email after email. It was chasing an email after an email, and it was always a new form. It was always a new bloody form I had to fill out, and I was like, for God's sake, I'm sure I filled this form out. No, here we go. Here's a new one. Here's a new one. Here's a new one. And so that felt like a rejection. Personally, I think I'm maybe fortunate, because my other job, there is so much rejection anyway, that, you know, for 50 auditions, you only get one, so you've got 49 to sort of get over quite quickly, otherwise you're never going to survive. So that's sort of something I got used to, but definitely the rejection of even sometimes your own customers. When we opened our first shop, and you'd be there, and, you know, the brand is called the Arty Vegan, and you'd have a long-standing vegan come in and just taste a cheese and go, oh, yeah, I don't like this, or something, which is totally fair enough. I mean, everybody's got their own like individual response, but I just remember going like, oh my God, like, you're my clientele, you're my...
It's probably the founder answering all the customer service, and that can like, say you're about to like put up like an Instagram story or something, or like launch a new Facebook ad, and then like you start your day and you see like an email of someone like not super happy, then like all that creativity just kind of gets zapped, and you're like, am I doing the right thing? But then when you think about the 10 emails that you got, or like 10 messages you got, people being like, I love this is like changed my life, da, 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 da. But you forget about those. And like, to be fair, like focusing on the negatives bit does help you improve the business, and then you change something that then makes that kind of customer also like it, and you're opening up your market. So like, it does help, but you forget that there are like humans on the other side who put like years of their life and energy into it.
Just on the note of like the teams and situation, I definitely, loads of, I don't know if you've ever done this, but we'd get emails in, because there were like multiple emails, so wholesale, then it would be like nationwide deliveries, it'd be e-commerce, complaints, events, everything, all with a different email address. The only person answering these emails is me. And so I just like, sometimes I get so knackered, I'll just be like, okay, I'm just gonna pass this on to Tom, and like just, Tom was the guy, you know, Tom was the guy, and Tom got all the shit, and it was just not me. And I was like, yeah, this kind of is good for my mental health. Tom was taking the crap bits, and I'm taking the positive things.
Yeah, it's also a good point. What feels like failure, right? What is actual failure? What do you interpret it as big? Oh, I failed big time, you know. And for me personally, I when I started my coaching business here, I had a part-time job as a barista. I quit that now almost 2 months ago, and I thought, now it's gonna fly. There we go. Well, I had quite a bit of a disappointing month, so that is something that can feel like a failure, and that spiral going down like, oh no, I'm not good enough. I'm gonna search secretly for a job, maybe on site, I don't know. And that is, here again, I really believe in the bigger picture where I'm working towards. What you say as well, that fire, that I see myself there. And in the meantime, I have to deal with revenue stress and how I'm gonna do this next month. And then I feel that I tend to make decisions from fear and not from passion and love for what I do. And that is what comes down, I think, what I said before, kind of try to not go only that road. Of course, I tell myself, okay, what can I improve? What can I do better next month? That's legitimate, of course, you want to improve. And at the same time, what can I do to keep going from a place of love and enthusiasm instead of fear and making decisions that maybe are not so beneficial for the long-term plan. And that asks again to tolerate these both feelings of picking up enthusiasm again, and as well, I'm stressed. Yeah, I am stressed, and that's okay. The only question I can ask myself is how can I deal with that and keep going?
One of the kind of like weirdest points of like some businesses is when you're fundraising. So when you're fundraising, it's like you're getting constant tough questions or knockbacks, or people being like, why are you doing this? Sometimes they say that, even though they think it's a good idea that you're doing this, but they're like constantly questioning you, and it's like a really hard, like just challenging time. But it's the time where you have to show constant enthusiasm. So you'll have had a call and you're like, oh my God, and then you're thinking, oh my God, I have to make this whole new financial model. That's going to take me like 2 days, and I have to do this, and then you look at the thing and you're like, oh God, another Zoom call scheduled. Have to like, and you like come on the Zoom call like, woo. And it's when you have to like, yeah, just have so much non-stop enthusiasm, even though you're taking kind of like the most hits. And I think that's just something of running a business, is just like you need optimism, you need hopefulness, enthusiasm and tenacity. Like you just need to be able to pick yourself up and not have it take like days to pick yourself up. Like you need it to take like literally 2 minutes, yeah, go make a cup of tea, come back and like go again.
Yeah. I was just going to say on the point you were making as well about like sort of seeing yourself somewhere and then having like creating choices from a place of fear or anxiety or stress. That's a really interesting point, because I often think that retrospectively, if I would have done things differently, we got to a fairly high place in business, in the food world or the vegan food world, but a lot of that time was spent chasing or supporting something that was running away from us because demand was growing. And it's only been in the last couple of weeks that we've now actually completely remodeled what we're doing. We're doing something completely different. Because we had a couple of big environmental setbacks, but we just had to stop and go, hang on a second, we could keep going down this road, but is this what you want? Why did we start? And you go back to that, you go, why did I start this? Like, what is it that I actually want? And once you really go back to that question, maybe it takes an hour, maybe you sit on your own and you have a cup of tea, like you say, or maybe it takes 2 minutes, sometimes it takes 2 weeks. But once you get back to that, you start again from a place of that love and that desire, and that means that the choices that you make are far more truthful to the business plan that you're going to move on to, and that creativity does flow once you're in that space. But if you're chasing something, the world is running you, and that's sometimes also quite hard to get out of, I think.
Thank you. Next question, one of my favorites. What challenges did you face that are specific to being a woman compared to a man that went through the same process? You mentioned something before, so I'm gonna start from you.
Oh, wow. God, everything. No, I food again, just specific. Maybe in other industries too, but food. I mean, you walk into any kitchen, go to a cafe, it's men. You know, I've been working in kitchens since I was like 14. I mean, it's men, people at the top, people at the bottom. It's usually run by men. And, you know, I'm not anti-men. I just think that because of that sort of history of that sort of, this is my space, my elbows are out, my legs are here, you have to create your own space. But that does make the day extremely tiring when you have to do that on a continual basis. And as we moved, again, like working bigger, more production, mass production, all of that stuff, I was dealing with probably about four to five men who were much older. And I mean, God, I was called naive, I was called stupid, I was called silly, I was called pretty, nice. I mean, all the things you don't really want to hear when you're just like, oh my goodness. But somewhere in the back of my head, I always found it very fascinating, because the thing that really motivated me was I was like, I may be all of those things, but you know what? I'm in a room doing business with you, and you're not opposite somebody who looks like you and who is your age and who's been doing the business you've been doing. I'm in this room because what have I got to offer here that's been lacking clearly in your life that you wanted to work with me? And so that was kind of like my motivating factor, because even though that room was continually very oppressive, I I got through the door. So something they didn't have. So yeah.
I think mine would probably be kind of, in a way, myself holding myself back. So just like say at the beginning with raising funds, like I feel like, well, there's definitely a stat behind this that I've read before, but I can't remember it. But like guys are more likely to go and raise funds sooner and raise larger amounts. So I waited quite a long time to look for investment, and my business needs investment. Like we've got like stock, we've got like all this tech that we're building. We need money to do that. And I think something about being female, I think in my brain, like I need to show more evidence before I can go out and get this money. And actually, like, I mean, that helped me because it gave me the confidence to then ask for the money, but really, like, I could have probably got it just on the idea and the concept itself, and that could have sped up our progress. And even now I'm about to go for a new round of funding, and I'm having to like wrap my head around how much money I can ask for, because it feels like such a big number. Yeah, I know. And like everyone I meet is like, ask for more, just ask for more than you even need, just like go for it, because why not? And I think that's actually something I've learned in general, is that sometimes you'll go for like, say like, for me, like I found like the smaller brands we work with and probably take up more of our time than the larger brands we work with. And it's just like, why not actually just go big? Because actually it doesn't really take more effort to go big.
This is the imposter.
Yeah, I think so. So I try and just like force myself to do stuff that like I don't feel comfortable with, because it's just like, you'll have those feelings, but you just go ahead and just send the email or like ask for the intro or just do the thing anyway, even if you're feeling them. And quite often they do end up actually working out, and you're like, oh, okay, glad I asked for that.
Just on that note as well, like your team, are they like women as well, or are they?
Yes, they are.
They are.
I've got 2 women working for me, and like a couple of freelance women as well. I don't really know why that's happened, but it just like has like naturally happened that way. I'm about to hire potentially a male. Just had a really good interview today. And then actually, I mean, this is kind of the way of the world, but like it's ended up that quite a few of my investors are men. And they've actually been like super, super supportive. One thing I noticed actually, have you done fundraising now? Sorry.
We've never.
Okay.
Yeah, well, this is interesting. It's not because I'm anti-fundraising or anything. I think it's fantastic. But I have always, for the past like 3.5 years, 4 years, just been like, we're just going to wait for the right moment though. Like, what do we really need the money? Do we really need the money? Should we really do that? Instead of just being like, jump in and do it.
Yeah.
But on that note of like money as well, like just with the team being women, it's sometimes right at the start, it was me and my dad's older, and he's a man, and he's white. And I'd be in meetings, and I've done all the work, I've done all the books and everything, and you'd be sitting opposite 2 people, and they'd look, and they would just not look at me, they would look at him, and my dad would just be sitting there going, and I'd be like, and they'd be like, and so what's the vision? What's happening next? And they'd be like, looking at him, and I'd be like, yeah, so this is the plan, and this is the pie chart, and I was like, and so I also, for him, bless him, he was just like, I don't want to go there, I don't know this stuff, like I just want to be in the kitchen, you do that.
I think it's also something that you can use your like differences as like to your advantage, like especially nowadays, like people say in the investment world, people really thinking like, oh shit, they look at their portfolio then like, oh, it's all just white guys, like I need to diversify. So it's kind of like a prime time to go and be in front of them like, hi, I'm a woman, I'm mixed race, I'm young, and then like suddenly they're like, okay, we actually need you to help us look like more diverse. It's like, why not take that as well?
Yeah. And also what you describe and saying that don't underestimate indeed the context that you literally hear these things, like, and literally see people looking at the man in the room. That it's quite hard to fight that and say, no, I'm secure, no, I'm confident. I mean, it's happening in front of you. So there is a whole context. We can of course say on an individual basis, how do I deal with this? And there are things happening in reality where we have to face this. That makes it harder. And I think with that also, my point is to cut yourself some slack that these things are actually happening and you're allowed to feel a bit confused about it, and then ask yourself, okay, how do I pick myself up? But it is happening, and that it's sometimes hard to deal with that, and that's all fine. For me, I didn't really hear like real literally things about being a woman or a man in this business. Something I think I can relate to you in that stuff is holding myself back maybe in how I see myself. Another millennial woman who has seen the light and preaches life coaching to other women. I check Instagram and there are a lot of people like me. And that is something that is in the holding back as a woman. How do I find my own voice in being myself? And well, if you really face that, how do I speak up as myself when literally people are doubting me? What is my voice then?
Just because, sorry, I'm hogging it, but just because what you said as well is like, it's how you feel in the situation, it's how the dynamic of that situation is affecting you and that personal experience, but then just the global reality and have a real sort of like look at that. And also, it's up to you how you take that. I mean, you could be angry, you can embrace it, you can be kind, you can be forgiving, whoever you are, and your baggage, you'll deal with it the way you do. But really noticing that that's a thing is, I think, fuel also for your own personal growth. Because for me, very much so, I found that retrospectively, a lot of the big shifts weren't because I don't think I could have played my cards any better. You know, sometimes I go back and I go, I couldn't have done anything better there. Like, that was the best I could do, but that is the way it is. That also gives you a chance to go, let go. Yeah. Like, let go. Because I don't know about you, but as a business owner or like a founder, you want to have control over so much the whole time. You're constantly going, oh, please. Like, let's just keep a fist onto that and then it'll all work as long as I keep a hold on it. But sometimes it's just like, no, it's just the odds aren't in your favor today. Let it go. On to the next thing, and that's where you might get a new breath.
Thank you. I would love to be here talking for like hours, but Bavisha, how are we doing on time? Yes, one last question though. I would like to ask 3 tips for female founders or anyone in the room that would like to start a company. What are your 3 tips that you will give to a new entrepreneur?
I always find this kind of question the hardest question. I'd say try and keep your enthusiasm, and to do that, just find like, if you are trying to start a business, do something that you can still have fun with. I think like last year I lost quite a lot of the fun of the business, and I tried to bring that back in this year, and I'm like so much happier doing it and I'm so much more motivated. So just try and have fun along the way. Like, even if you just see it as a productivity hack to have fun, if you're having fun, you're more likely to like work better in your business, basically. I think I'm actually only going to do 2. I think the other most important thing is just like action trumps ideas every time. So it's great to have good ideas, but unless you do them, no one gets to experience them, and you want these people to experience your genius. So yeah, action over everything.
3. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's brilliant. I think that's really brilliant. I think I want to frame something in terms of like a sort of a grit or just a resilience. I think that's an important thing, whether that means that you decide to go for a run every day and prove that you're going to do 21 minutes over 20, that kind of like that thing in you, that fire, having the fire alongside the love, I think is very important. But yeah, I mean, I would say just be fearless a little bit. Like, what have you got to lose? Really, you know, I mean, there are loads of jobs out there and you can do anything probably if you trained. So, but you're choosing to do something for you. So yeah, just have fearless go. That is very random. But, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say nobody, for example, wakes up in the morning and thinks, I want to be coached by Marlien. Nobody wakes up and wants to meet, because because you know me now. Unless I am visible, speak about what I do, then and connect with the people I want to help, then people want to buy things in your business and be guided by me what I do. And if you're indeed doubting or still searching for that perfect idea, or there is already so much out there, there is only one version of you, only one version of you with your parents, with your background, with your experience, with your friends. So the people in the world need you and your version of your story. And if you are going to stand for that and be visible for that, then you're going to attract, and then you're going to realize, this world needs me. My goodness, I have to offer something. And that requires that you first believe that you are able to do that. You're going to fall down, you're going to believe again, you're going to fall down, you're going to believe again. That's a whole journey. Enjoy that a little bit and go for it with the version that you are.
One thing, the third one, it came to me. I was going to say, actually, because I feel like this has been really important for me. It's my group of friends and my surrounding, my intimate circle don't have businesses themselves. They're not in the business world. And I would say I struggled for a very long time to come to terms with the fact that my lifestyle is perhaps not healthy or not what they view to be balanced or whatever it is. But I personally get a lot of pleasure from being a workaholic and loving every day of my life to the max, not sleeping and all that. I thrive on it. So in whatever relationship that works for you guys, it's like, don't compare yourself to the other person. Whether that's in business, sometimes it's useful to kind of look at like your competition, but really don't compare your business with anybody else's, because I've never found that to be helpful at all.
Thank you very much for the tips. I will put them into practice as well. I think we're gonna move on to the Q&A, and then we're gonna have a little exercise at the end of the session, where Marlien is gonna guide us through this exercise, and we can move on to the questions, if there are any. Yes.
My question is around how you combine doing a startup with a family member or your partner, for example. Like when you're both risking everything, having all that stress around, but how do you maintain kind of that professionalism while you also have a personal relationship with the person?
I mean, I work with my dad, so that's a pretty personal relationship. I think that there's an element of it that just comes from being open to the fact that the relationship, one, will change, and not being scared of that, because it doesn't mean it's necessarily bad change, it's just different. Realizing that there will be moments where it's not what it used to be at all. Like, me and my dad, I think there were years where he didn't even ask me like, how are you? It was like, when's the next delivery? What do I have to do today? Where do I have to be? All of that stuff, and me telling him what to do, which is also very weird. But finding those moments when you can, and for us it was always Christmas. It was always at the end. It was always at the end of the year, because that's when cheese is most loved. And that's when it was just relentless, and you'd be slogging, making, packing, boxing, everything. But you'd always have that one drink, and it could be at 4 a.m. or something. And honestly, that's something that I'm talking about, I'm getting goosebumps, but really, that carried me sometimes through the entire year. Just knowing that this person that I love, who will wake up with me when the machine breaks, at 3 a.m. and be there. It's like a special bond. It's not an employee, you're not paying them, it's not hours, it's not this. It's they're there because they care about it as much as you. And kind of remembering that in those little moments at 3 a.m, you're saluting with a glass of champagne going, we did another year, great. And really holding on to those moments kind of takes you through the hard bits where it's like a lot of shouting and a lot of also not speaking very politely because you know them so intimately.
We'll walk to you because I'm far away. Firstly, thank you guys so much. This is brilliant. But my question was for Eve. What I wanted to ask was, why do you think this? I don't know if this is philosophical or psychological, but why did you think when you were asking for the brands, that was an easy process to do? But when it came to asking for the money aspects of things, that was a little bit more difficult.
It's probably something to do with some kind of my money mindset and stuff. I think just for me, I've never grown up seeing that much money. So when I eventually did get it to open up the business account and be whoa, like that's a lot. I think there's definitely something in that if you're used to it. So say for an investor, right? I could be asking, if I'm asking someone who has 5 million in the bank for 50 grand, they think that's nothing. They're like, okay, cool, yeah, like we can transfer that in like a week, fine. If I'm asking someone for 50k who has 55k, they're gonna think about that a lot more. So I guess it was kind of the reverse in that, like, I haven't grown up seeing all that money. So for me, I was like, this feels like such a big deal, but you kind of have to wrap your head around the fact that like the investors want to put money into businesses that they think have potential to make them a bigger return. And I think it was just wrapping my head around the fact that this business, I believe, hopefully, will be like really successful and it will actually make these people money, and they're investing in something that's also helping the planet. So it was just kind of repositioning it in my mind that actually this is like a really great deal for them. I'd rather they put their money in this business and go and invest in like an oil company or something. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, this is actually a positive thing. And I think maybe what I thought when I went to the brands was I knew I was offering them something that I thought was like the future of their company and would really help their company. I think it was just taking a while to wrap my head around that for the investor side of things. I think that's just a point in general, like when you're going out to ask for something, it's thinking about how is this going to help this person or this brand, and that makes it a lot easier to ask for things when you know that it's going to actually benefit them. And the same when you're going to try and find customers, it's framing it in a way of like, how is this going to help their lives? And then you feel so much more comfortable going up to them and being like, hi, like I started this company, blah, blah.
Hello, I don't know what stage you fundraised like for the first time, but who helped you with your financial model? And I remember you saying you had to keep on changing and amending it. Like, were you from a numbers background, or how did you go around that? Because I find the financial model stuff really difficult.
Yeah, it is really challenging. What are you fundraising at the moment or thinking about it?
Yeah, it was kind of like we raised a little bit and paused just because we're a tiny team as well. It's hard to fundraise and run a business.
Oh yeah, that's like one of the biggest challenges. I think the thing is, when you're making like a financial model, you think someone's going to look at every single number in it and really dissect it. What they really want from a financial model is to just see that you thought it through yourself. Every investor I go to basically says, look, I know this isn't exactly what the path of the business is going to follow, because you have no idea what's coming in the next 6 months or a year or 3 years, and you're giving them a financial model for the next 5 years. It's all hypothetical. So I think if you just have logic behind it, say you have assumptions in there like, oh, this takes 3 months, that's your assumption. This people will pay £20 for this, that's your other assumption. As long as it's realistic and logical, they're more looking that you're thinking about it in a structured way than looking for the numbers to be right. And then in terms of help, I actually was part of like a business accelerator, and there was a guy there who was really good at Excel. So I still had to like think about everything and plan it all out, and I came to him with something, but I was just like, can you help me with the actual formulas of making this work? So as long as you know how it's going to work in your head, it's just find some like freelancer Excel whiz who can bring that into reality in a doc. Oh no, and I still don't. And oh my god, I looked at like kind of like freelance CFOs. Yeah. They charged like, it was like $3,000 a day. I was like, surely a CFO would tell me not to hire a CFO. So I just thought that.
Sorry, just on that, just on the point of the sort of spreadsheets and all of this stuff, I had an experience where I busted my gut and I created personally, and I think publicly, one of the best spreadsheets that ever existed. I mean, they were attached. It was 20 pages. All the formulas were doing the thing. There was the projection, and off I went to this meeting. And I put it on the PowerPoint, and I was there, and I was ready to go, and like talking them through the numbers. And the woman who was the woman put her hand up and just was just like, yeah, so 6 months projection, and I was just like. In my head, it was a bit more complicated than that. My whole spreadsheet, you don't want to see my spreadsheet? And literally, the whole conversation ended up like nothing to do with numbers whatsoever. It was all to do with the vision, the plan, and this idea of structured thinking. And actually, all that work I put in, I could have saved myself. I mean, it probably was good that it was there, but it didn't really do the thing.
Exercise.
It's an
yeah.
yeah.
No one else cares.
as much as you.
There's a great scene. I mean, this is weird, but there's a great scene in Wolf of Wall Street where and Matthew McConaughey is just saying like, yeah, it's just fluff. It's just fun. And Leonardo DiCaprio's saying, yeah, but we are telling them the truth, right? And he's just like, yeah, but it's all just fluff because this hypothetical thing, numbers, projections, it's all up there. The reality is completely different, and how you sell that reality with that kind of selling nature, if you want to call it, is tenfold more expressive and communicative than any spreadsheet.
Next question. No. Exercise.
Cool. Let's go for it. I'm gonna stand. It's a bit uncomfortable. I'm gonna set a timer. I was asked to keep it in 10 minutes. Dealing with imposter syndrome takes your whole life. We have 10 minutes to fix it together. Let's go for it. Now, I was thinking, what could be some kind of thought exercise? Grab a handout if you don't have one. I have a few here. Just everyone has a handout and a pen to write stuff down. I was thinking what could be indeed a short and sweet exercise to reduce the impact of imposter feelings a bit. And it's a thought exercise. Maybe you're a bit familiar with it. Maybe you get nothing out of it. Maybe it's life-changing. Let's experiment together. I'm going to start my timer to keep a track of time. And you have a handout. I'm going to write stuff down individually, and also a moment to share a bit, but I will guide you through it. So first of all, I would like to ask you to think of a moment where you felt a bit blocked by imposter feelings, self-doubt or self-criticism, and where you think, I would like to approach that differently next time. Take a concrete moment in your mind when you felt imposter feelings and it was blocking you a bit. And I will give you 1 minute to think of a moment and write it down on the paper. And the minute is almost over, so write down the last thoughts. And this is kind of, first of all, the event. What kind of moments trigger you to have imposter feelings? And the second question I would like to ask you is, in that moment, that event, when that triggered, for example, your boss gave you feedback, you were thinking, oh my goodness, here's the proof that I'm not good enough. Try to kind of recall what were your thoughts and feelings in that moment when that happened. What were you thinking and what were the emotions you felt? Fear, sad, anxiety. Write it down like a brain dump. You don't have to overthink it or solve it, just write down what you thought and felt. And that was another minute. Maybe it's not complete for now, but that's fine. You can maybe think about it later in the bus back home, what else you thought and felt.
an important thing about imposter feelings is that we are thinking we are the only one being crazy. Am I crazy that I'm doubting myself so much? But a lot of people can relate. So that's why we're going to share with each other a little bit what is on your paper right now. So look your neighbor in the eye, and I give you 2 minutes. If it's the 3 of you, then you can decide if one wants to listen in or you share real quick. 1 minute each. I will shout when a minute is over. The first person starts, and then the second can go a minute after. So you can start sharing now.